Alright, so here we have all the pieces that you're going to get when you get your Inversion-DX. Now the DX is the deluxe model. It's made for more of your aerial, nice smooth footage and whatnot, since it's going to have a clean and dirty section. This piece here is going to be your top of your dirty section. It's going to be the ones with the holes in it. It's important that this is the top. One, your bobbins aren't going to fit if this is on the bottom. It's going to fall through the frame. So that's going to be your top of your dirty section. This one here is going to be your skid plate, which is going to be the bottom, so your bobbin's going to go to it. You're going to have the bottom plate of the clean section here, and then obviously this is your top plate. That'll go up on the top of the frame. You've got your camera mount, you've got your power distribution board, flight controller, and your FPV camera mount hardware. You've got your standoffs, which are going to be 6 of those. You've got extra hardware with these. We package all of them the same, so the DX gets a little bit more extra screws that you're not going to use. So if you have some extra screws with your standoffs, that's okay. You're also going to get your arm hardware. You're going to get some motor hardware. You're going to get 2 per arm. If you use some blue Loctite, you'll be okay. I've never had a problem. I've always only used 2 on every single one of my builds. I've never had one come loose as long as you're using that blue Loctite. Then you're going to get 4 of the bobbins to separate the clean and dirty sections. You're going to get 3 white LEDs for the front of the frame. You're going to get 6 blue LEDs for the rear of the frame. You're going to get the power cables, which is a 14 gauge with your XT60. This might be yellow, it might be blue. It's a surprise. You're going to get 4 JSTs, so 2 pairs. This is for your LEDs. You're also going to get the hardware for the front and the rear bumper, and then a couple pieces of heat shrink just for your XT60. And then from there we'll go ahead and start assembling the frame. Alright, so when we start building our Inversion-DX, we're going to start with our skid plate. You're going to lay out all your ESCs, whether you're going to be using our new B series, already flashed with BO Heli. They're 20 amp with the BEC. These are going to be your power cables, or you can use our Black Ninja series. These Black Ninja series they come in a 12 amp and a 20 amp ESC. This is a 20 amps or a full size ESC. You can use these. These will fit side by side on the bottom as well. And then we also have our new 30 amp B series Optos that'll take a 6S. So the guys that are really trying to push it and want to use a 6S can do that as well. They will also fit on top of the skid plate. Now once you got your ESCs lined up, then you can use a wrap strap to hold them down. I like to use some 2-way tape. Once they're in there and they're sandwiched between the 2 plates, they're not going to go anywhere, so you really don't have to worry about that being a problem for you. Now to get started, what you're going to want to do is start with your rubber bumpers, or excuse me, not your bobbins. You're going to just stick them through. These come with the lock washer. Some sets have the lock washer, some sets don't have a lock washer. If you don't have a lock washer, I would recommend using some blue Loctite. If you don't have, or if you do have the washer, you don't need to worry about the blue Loctite so much. I have a small little wrench here that fits the bolts, so it'll be the same one that you'll use on the other hardware for your lock nuts. Get your 4 bobbins on, and then we can move on to the next step. Once you get started, you're going to start with your skid plate here. I've gone ahead and pre-assembled these 3 bobbins on there. All you're going to have to do is find your 4 holes. It's not the front ones, it's going to be back one. Use that, and then also in the back area you're going to use this hole here on each side for your bobbin. Now depending on the kit, some of the kits came with the lock washers. Some of the kits didn't have a lock washer, so if you don't have a lock washer with your kit, I would just recommend using some blue Loctite, and it'll be just as well as having the lock washer on there. If you have a lock washer, you don't need the blue Loctite. If you want to use it for warm fuzzies, then you're more than welcome to, but it's not needed. Once you've got your 4 bobbins on there, that's what's going to isolate your dampening for your camera and also your flight controller. You can move on to getting your arms on. Alright, so once we've got our 4 bobbins on, we can move on to getting our arms. You're going to get your top of your dirty section, you'll notice that there's cutouts for the bobbins in here. They actually serve two purposes by being where they are, is that in a hard crash, these are going to limit the amount of movement that the frame can go, so these bobbins shouldn't ever separate. They will if you take too hard of a crash, that's no lie, but it'll take a good hit before they do crash, so don't worry about it being a fragile frame, because by any means it's not. So to get your arm on there, you want to go ahead and start with your front arm, your rear arm. It doesn't really matter, just start with one of them. What you're going to want to do is get your first bolt started, and from there you're going to want to take your 3mm spacer and put it on there. Now obviously it's going to fall off, so you're going to need to hold it together. It'll be a little bit difficult because you're going to have your ESCs on this plate when you're doing it. Get it in there, get it started, and hold it on with one of your lock nuts. From there you can start your next bolt, and then I like to use a set of big tweezers. This comes in a big set. Then you can just take your other 3mm spacer and really get it in there without any problems. You can use needle nose pliers. If you have a small set of needle nose pliers, you can utilize it as well. You're going to do this for all the other bolts. For the other arms, I'll go ahead and move forward to the next arm. Same thing. Start from the top side, which right now is positioned at the bottom. Find your hole. You always need 4 hands here. Get it through there. Use your tweezers or your needle nose. Get that 3mm spacer on there, and then you can slide that bolt through the skid plate. And you're going to want to do this for all 4 of your arms. Obviously I pushed that one through. I don't need it through right now. I just need to get the 3mm spacer in there. Alright, so just finished putting all the arms on. I've tightened them all down so they're all tight. You don't have to worry about using any Loctite on these. These are all lock nuts, so they'll stay on. From here we want to move on to putting our bumpers on. The bumpers, obviously this is the front. Whether the front is the top or the bottom, there's no right or wrong way to put the bumpers on this, unlike the Inversion R. If you have that frame, you'll know that one's a little bit different when it comes down to putting the bumpers on. You're going to take one of your 16mm the M3 16mm bolts. Just going to go through the hole. It might have to be started. It's a 3D printed part, so sometimes the tolerances aren't the same as you would get with an actual machine part. But it's just plastic, so it's gonna go right on there pretty easily. You don't have to worry about much there. I'll put one on here for now. That's going to go all the way through. You're going to put another one of your lock nuts there, and move on to the back. Now the back bumper, this one it won't go on the wrong way. So you'll notice there's a backing brace there that keeps the bumper from flexing when it gets heated up from the LEDs, because the LEDs do get hot since they are such a bright LED. That's just going to slide in there, snap into place, and then you can line up your holes in the same manner as you did the front. And then your bolt might need to just be started to get through the bumper there. And again, it's just plastic, so it should go fairly well. I'm just putting a little pressure on there with my thumb to help the screw make its way through. Then you're going to do that, and then you can put your nylon lock nut on there, and then start the other side. Also, at this time, you're going to want to start thinking about how you're going to run your LED JST line to get power to your LEDs. I like to just run it through the bottom of the arm and back up through the middle of the frame. Some people I've seen bring it up over the top and just bring it, because you got to remember that this bottom section is going to be isolated from the upper part of the quad because of the clean and dirty design of the frame. So we'll move back up to the front, since I did skip that, so we can get to the rear. Get that lined up. Again, get that hole started with the screw. Again, I'm just giving it a little pressure there to help get it through that plastic. All of our 3D bumpers and stuff are printed by Kenny over there at great3d.com, so if you do need something specially ordered, go ahead and give him a shout. He can get you set up with whatever you need for the inversion if you were to break something, or you can buy that spare part from us, or if you want something specially made, then you can still contact him and he'll make it up for you. Alright, so once you finish the bumpers, you can set this aside just for a couple minutes. We're going to move on to the bottom plate of the clean section. What you're going to want to do here is go ahead and get your hardware for your PDB and your flight controller. So just stick one through there, and then I like to hold those on with a little nylon nut as well. It serves two purposes. One, it holds the screw on for you while you're assembling and everything. It doesn't fall off, but also it gives you a spacer for the PDB and the carbon fiber frame, because like we all know, carbon fiber will conduct electricity, and on top of that, this being a 3K twill carbon fiber, it's not a glass fiber or anything like that, so you're definitely going to have a conductor if you don't get that power board off of the frame. You're going to want to do that to all four spots here. That's nice. These don't have to be extremely tight. It's just plastic, so if you crank on them, they're gonna break. So finger tight's just fine. Some people use Loctite on the nylon. I don't know why. I think that it'll eventually start to eat it. I've never left it on for a long period of time, but it's really not needed for this. So go ahead and get that on there, and then you can move on to attaching this to the dirty section of the frame. So now that these four are on, you can move back over and grab your dirty section of the frame. So obviously this is going to be the front. They kind of look the same. You can recognize the front because of the slots for the camera plate. Once you get this, you can go ahead and put these over the four bobbins, and it's going to be the four sliders. They're long openings, and that's where your bobbins are going to go into. Now what we'll address here is that one of the neat things about the DX is you've got about a ½ inch of travel that you can slide this forward or backwards depending on your battery. It's not a lot of movement, but it gives you enough to where it makes you're creating a better CG. So you can adjust this plate with your battery in the rear mount to get a better CG, getting the battery forward. If you're switching to a 3-cell battery or something, you can slide it back a little bit if you need to get that weight back there a little bit more to help balance the frame. So once you get this where you need it to be, whether it's back or forward, you can go ahead and drop on your lock washer, and then you're going to want to go ahead and put your standoffs on. Just go ahead and tighten those down, finger tight. You can grab them with a pair of pliers, but then you're going to mar it up and stuff. If you don't have the lock nuts, you can go ahead and use some blue Loctite on the bobbins. You're not going to hurt anything there. And then also you'll want to do that so your standoffs don't come off on you. Go ahead and do this to the two bobbins. I'm going to go ahead and jump forward to the front of the frame. Now the front of the frame obviously isn't going to have the bobbins, and that's where you're going to have to go ahead and use one of your screws. And of this screw, you're going to go ahead and want to use the blue Loctite on it. Don't use the red, use the blue. And go ahead and get that standoff on there. Tolerances are pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and put this on so it stops moving around on me. The tolerances are pretty tight on both of our frames, so if something is difficult to get through the hole, that's why. So you might just have to help it get through that carbon via your Allen wrench. and once it's started, it'll be all right. And then finally we'll get the last piece on. Now from here you can go ahead and start pulling your wires. Have probably already been fed through where you need them to be. I usually like to bring all of my power wires through the diamond in the middle. The reason for that is that the mini PDB that we sell has a hole in the middle. So I'll usually pull all of my wires up through the middle hole and stretch them to where they need to be. Then put that on there. Like I said, it's because you have these nuts on here, it keeps it off of the carbon fiber, and then you can also utilize the little switches that are on the PDB. Once you got that, you can go ahead and start soldering all your wires and getting those set where you need them to be. And then you can grab your Ninja 32 board, which again is based off of a Naze 32 pinout. So it's going to be identical. The only thing that's going to be interesting on this is the way that you need to have these pins soldered. The pins for this, if you're going to use the right angle, they need to be inward and also up at an angle, or you won't be able to get your servo leads on here. You can also not use it this way. Obviously you can straight solder to the board, but if you are going to use the pins, then you need to have it inward and also pointed up. The other thing is you'll notice that the arrow, this is going to be the front of the board. Well, if we make that the front of the board, we're going to have our wires here. So what I like to do is I clock it counterclockwise 90 degrees, I put it on, and then I don't have to worry about any of the wires coming out. One step I did miss though is you need to go ahead and get these spacers and put the spacers over these nylon bolts, and that'll keep us from hitting the PDB. So now that you have that, now you can put this on, and now everything's clear. Then I'm going to go ahead and hold this on with two more of the nylon nuts. You can use 4, which is what I recommend because these are just nylon, so if one breaks off, at least you've got 3 more to help hold it on in a crash. So now that you have that, that's pretty much done. You can go ahead and get your camera plate. Your camera plate's going to have the standard 4 holes in the corner to hold your camera on there. What I like to do is I like to use the long bolt for the top. You'll notice there's going to be a really long bolt. You want to put that one on the top, and then you want to use the little one on the bottom. And then what that's going to allow you to do is angle your camera. So at 90 degrees you can see there that the camera's probably got a good 10 degrees tilt on it forward. It's for those guys that need more extreme of a pitch, then we also have thought of you. And what we can do there is we can utilize our plate in position here. You can select one of 2 options here. You can use the front holes or the more rear holes to catch even more of an angle on your camera. So you'll notice that at the top here, if I use the top holes, then I'm going to have 90 degrees, and I'm only using whatever I have built into the camera. Now if I put it in these top holes here, or excuse me, the back holes for the camera plate, and I slide this back to line it up, what'll happen is it'll allow that camera plate to be angled. Let's get that back in there. And then what'll happen is the camera plate will be angled. Once you've got it at the angle that you desire, you can go ahead and grab your other standoff bolts and stick them in here. I'll start here in the rear, and I'll explain why here in a second. And again, if you have 4 hands, I'd recommend using them. Alright, so once you've got your top plate where you need it to be on the I'm going to go ahead and move this forward just to make it easier. I'm not messing with this thing. Alright, so once you've got this top plate set where you need it to be, and this has to be lined up, so it's going to be a little bit of work because that slider. Since this is really made for filming, if you need to get an angle on your camera, we also include the 15-degree ramp with it, and that's what's going to hold your Mobius or your GoPro. So you're going to want to go ahead and put that on top. and put your bolt through, and I would recommend using some blue Loctite here, and then you can feed this in through the standoff. And then from here you're going to have a spot to mount your Mobius, a spot to mount your GoPro, and then since you have a clean and dirty section, you're going to be able to get that nice clean footage without having to worry about any jello or anything like that. Now, since this is a small frame and it will still spin a 6-inch prop, you are asking a lot of these little bobbins to keep that vibration out of those unbalanced 6-inch props that are out there. So what you're going to probably want to do is go ahead and, if you're running a 6-inch prop, is make sure that they're balanced if you're really looking to get rid of every last bit of jello. I'm going to loosen these up so I can slide this back just a hair, which is, like I said, that's one of the features of this frame, is that the plate slides so that you can get that CG proper. You'll just loosen it up just a little bit more. And then I can get these lined up. Let's see if I can do it on the ground. Now this is the same frame that our team pilot Abel is flying. I think he's known as Navihawk on YouTube and on RC groups, but this is the same frame he uses. He likes the DX version. He's more into the nice smooth flying, too, as our other team pilot Sean Morrison. He's using the Inversion R so that he can use that 6S setup and really go insane with the speeds and of the R will let you have. So once you get that on there, flip it over to the other side, grab one last bolt, get this guy in here and get that cinched down, and now you'll have a 15-degree mount, like I said, for the Mobius and for the GoPro. Now you'll notice that we've got the Mobius will just sit on this ramp. It'll fit in between there, so you don't have to worry about it sliding out that way. And what we recommend is using these wrap straps. They're a little bit less harsh on your electronics. Just slide it through here. I'd probably give it 2 points. Then you can put it there, do another one in the back. That'll hold your Mobius on there nice and tight. Now this is elastics or rubber, so it will stretch. So once you've got it on there, you can just give it a little and pull it right out. The GoPro, since most people want to make sure this isn't going to fall off, since they are a little bit more expensive, is we've got these ramp stoppers here, and that's going to go on there just like that. You can stick one of your straps through it this way, wrap it up and around. Might have to be careful for your record button if you do that. And then the other method is to bring it in through the front. There's a slot there, there's a slot on the top, and the first time you do that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You might probably want to put two points of connection here. I use these little tweezers, find the tip here, and then we can pull that wrap strap right through, pull it up and over, and now you've got a GoPro, 15-degree GoPro mount on your DX. And from there you'll be able to still swing your 6-inch prop, have a GoPro, and then again, since this is a DX and it's more made for, you got your vibration dampening, and also that helps with your camera and your flight controller be a little bit more stable. And that's your Inversion-DX, which is the deluxe. So, all right. So the one thing I do want to cover with the Inversion-DX, also it applies to the Version R, is the battery placement. Now the design of the frame was to give you a trunk mount battery. Now our UBAD 1300 milliamp hour batteries, whether it be the 3-cell or the 4-cell batteries, have a metal plates here and also here, and that's kind of how the frame was designed, was with the battery in mind, and everything kind of works together if you keep it together. The battery, traditionally, people like to put them on their face or on their back, something like that. what you need to do with the Inversion R, because it is a 250 millimeter frame, or excuse me, the Inversion-DX, since it's a 250 millimeter frame, when you're running the 6-inch props, you're going to get really close to your cells with that prop. What you're going to want to do is make sure that your battery is held upright. And what that'll do is it'll provide protection if you do get a prop strike and a crash, or the 4-cell battery, which is obviously 1 cell bigger than this. It's going to take it right up to the very edge of where what some might consider a safe zone. So it's going to clear. There's not going to be any problem with it hitting except in a crash, but you want to make sure your battery's placed like this so it does hit those plates versus hitting your cells of your battery.